Well, hey there, I'm Axel the Beast, and I want to talk to you about Majora's Mask and Twilight Princess, and specifically, which one is darker and the general darkness themes of both of the games. This is something that kind of goes back a ways, back to Majora's Mask. When Majora's Mask came out, it was kind of different, especially in style and themes and such. When it was made, a lot of people proclaimed it the darkest Zelda that ever was to exist. And I actually agree with this. At that time, no Zelda game came close to Majora's Mask in darkness. It just had a darker storyline, darker tones, darker themes, etc. Then, time went by, more Zelda games came out, none of them surpassed Majora's Mask in darkness. But then Twilight Princess came out. Now, it was, everyone was, freaking out about how awesome the game was going to be, and how just incredible the game was going to be because it had the new realistic graphics that a lot of people were excited about, and it was just going to be this big comeback for the series if it needed a comeback, of course. Some people thought it did, and that was what it was kind of meant to be from what I understood. There was some wariness by some people, I believe, and me included, about the new style, in that word it would be too dark. And I have a personal opinion. Well, first off, there's a big debate on this now. Which is the darkest Zelda game, Twilight Princess or Majora's Mask? It's always one of the two. No one ever says, "Oh, it's Wind Waker," or it's Minish Cap. No one ever says that. It's always Majora's Mask or Twilight Princess. I personally think that Twilight Princess is the darker of the two games. Now, a lot of people think the opposite, that Majora's Mask is far darker than Twilight Princess could ever be. I have come to acknowledge that in some ways Majora's Mask may be darker when you go boil down to specific single traits about the game. But I think when you consider everything together, Twilight Princess ends up as darker, and I'm here to explain why. Now, first to note, I'm not saying it being darker is a bad thing. I'm just talking about which I think is darker. Let's first off talk about the storyline. In Majora's Mask, you got the Link trying to find his friend, which most people believe is Navi, and that's probably correct. And he gets the Ocarina of Time stolen from him by the Skull Kid, and he's cursed into the Deku form. He has to help get the Ocarina of Time back, and then he's healed and turns back to Link, and he has to go find the Majora's Mask for the Happy Mask salesman, which was stolen by the Skull Kid. Now, Skull Kid went around using the power of Majora's Mask to curse everyone and ruin everyone's lives, and he's admittedly twisted, punishments and tricks on people, and otherwise really screwed up the land. Then, Link had to free all the giants, face a lot of creatures, and help a lot of people whose lives were destroyed by the Skull Kid, some of which he could not completely save, but could only soothe their fallen souls. And then it culminates in his big battle against Majora, which somehow ends up being some kind of freaky demon thing who's possessing the Skull Kid, playing off his sadness of losing his friends, the four giants. Then we got the story of Twilight Princess, in which Link is this hard-working farm boy in Ordon, and his whole peaceful village is ruined, and their whole peaceful lives uprooted by the marauding Bulblins as they come and kidnap the children and knock Link out and otherwise terrorize the village. And their whole lives are destroyed, and the children are taken, the parents are terrified, and Link is stuck in this wolf form and dragged off and imprisoned, and Midna appears and helps him out. And the whole game, most of the time, unless you knew more about the game ahead of time, you're probably pretty suspicious of Midna. I've heard of people that didn't even trust her until the climax of the game, and then they were like, wait, what? She's good? And the whole game you have this ally you don't necessarily know if you can trust, and well, I think at least halfway through she was definitely cleared of all suspicion. Some people didn't see it that way. You had a lot of themes of death as characters died, and the Twilight took over Hyrule. You had enemies that were cursed people that some people believe that you actually had to kill. There was no way you could save them, and they made more people into their cursed forms, that turned more people into shadow beasts that you had to kill. And they just terrorized and destroyed Hyrule and ruined people's lives, and etc. There's a bit of that's a bit debatable which is a darker story, because in Twilight Princess, you have these horrible things happening to people, and you have people dying and lives being destroyed. But at the same time, you have you have the whole kingdom getting basically taken over. But at the same time, in Majora's Mask, you have this sense of dread and hopelessness some of the times because the moon is going to fall. And so it's a bit of a debate there on the story, which is darker there. So let me get to the next point. Lightness and Grittiness. I think that this is where I think I can start to agree with the people who say Majora's Mask is darker. I think, all in all, they may be right. It is a darker game when you just talk about darkness. There's another aspect here, the lightness. Majora's Mask, despite being very dark and having dark and disturbing themes, was actually had a lot of light parts thrown in. You had a lot of funny characters, odd little moments, and it had a lighter tone and feel. Now, I've heard people talk about it being creepier when it's dark, but it has the lighter stuff to it because it's two-faced. It's really creepy and menacing. However, that is true. Things can be like that, but I do not believe Majora's Mask did that feel. I don't believe that that happened. Whereas in Twilight Princess, there were funny moments, of course. There's always jokes thrown in and odd little characters. But it just seemed like it didn't go to such lengths to lighten the mood. It didn't throw in lightness to balance the darkness. It was just a very gritty game. Very grim, very dark, very depressing. Now let's get down to style. Both games had very different styles. Majora's Mask pretty much had the Ocarina of Time style, which some people say is actually just the Twilight Princess style, but it's a little different. It's more stylized, a little more anime-like, and it's not quite realistic and stuff. And it's not just the bad graphics that made it like this. Well, not bad, but, not as amazing, I guess. It did darken said style a little bit, but not a lot. It just maybe that came through mostly in the character designs and the theme and the undertones. In Twilight Princess, they had the realistic style, and this adds to the grittiness. And it also had very disturbing creatures and character designs. Even the designs, the way the art direction was done, it was dark. You had creatures, some of which may have not even rivaled the top most disturbing creatures from, say, Ocarina of Time, like the Dead Hand and Bongo Bongo. But basically, they might not have been as bad, but they were all in that vein. Almost the entire bestiary in Twilight Princess was the disturbing nature. Very grim, very dark. Some of them very disturbing, like Twilight Bloat, the giant shadow insect you fight, the Re-Dead Knights, and a variety of other foes had a very disturbing nature to them. Oh, the big pose. There's another one. I think ultimately Twilight Princess had a darker style. Now let's get to presentation and undertones. Majora's Mask had this kind of mysterious, dark aspect to it, and the undertones had this sense of hope and dread, of hopelessness and dread. But also at the same time, I think it told a story of hope, and of actual hope. Things are bad, really horrible, but things will get better. And they had scenes that seemed very surreal, and I think some people interpreted as dark, yet they were very beautiful in a way, and they actually, if you pay attention to the meaning of said scene, it was more of a beautiful, peaceful thing. Now, in Twilight Princess, you had lots of, you basically had this undertone of sadness the whole time. Even in the end, when everything's good and everything's been fixed, the country isn't fixed. I mean, in Majora's Mask, yeah, horrible things happen, but once you defeat the bad guy, everything's happy-dandy, skipping through the fields and such. Whereas in Twilight Princess, the bad guy is defeated and things are fixed, but not everything's back to normal. Things still need to be repaired, and things need to gradually change for the better. Additionally, there were at least 2 very sad sequences in the ending, in which Midna leaves forever, and Link leaves Ordon Village, or what seems to be him doing so. It just seems like there's this feel of sadness, and there's also a very cinematic feel to it, where they ditch a lot of the style, so it has this very gritty, grim, serious aspect to the way it's presented. Because of these concepts balanced together, I feel that Twilight Princess wound up being, overall, a darker experience. There are aspects of Majora's Mask that trumpet in darkness, but I don't think, if you consider things all together, you can say that Twilight Princess wasn't as dark as Majora's Mask. Now, it does need to be said that they did have different ideas, themes, storyline traits, and etc. So, because of personal opinions, some people are going to be naturally be more depressed, disturbed, emotionally affected, or just creeped out by certain aspects. Some people may have found the hopelessness of the moon and the impending doomsday much more dark because of their personal taste and their personal tolerance than the storyline bits of Twilight Princess. I'm not like that. I think Twilight Princess was darker, but that's just me. Be sure to tell me what you think in the comments, and I'll try not to talk about Twilight Princess quite so much in the future. Later, guys.